Welcome. I'm Raul Lowry Contreras, now in my 59th year of counting votes. Yes, that's right. This is the Contreras Political Report post-Trump edition. As I said, I have been counting votes for 59 years, since I earned my first paycheck in professional politics. I know how to count votes. I know how to project winners and losers. I know how to campaign. I know who votes and who doesn't. I've known candidates who deserved to win who lost. I've known candidates who didn't deserve to win but did. I've seen candidates who were bitter about losing but stood in front of cameras and were gracious in losing, like Nixon when he lost to President John F. Kennedy in 1960. I've seen candidates who were bitter about losing in private and public, like Nixon when he lost the California governorship in 1962 and told a press conference that the media would not have Richard Nixon to kick around anymore, quote unquote, after his loss to Edmund G. Pat Brown, to a man who didn't even go to college. I thought I had seen it all. Many times I have sat with candidates who were behind election night as votes were being counted, after many votes had been counted, only to watch the regular hourly reports that showed his vote totals growing slowly hour after hour until a day or night later, we would watch his vote total increase past his opponent's total and win. For example, in 1960, Nixon lost California with the count of the in-person votes, but came back ever so slowly for 4 days and nights until all absentee ballots were counted. Nixon carried California by fewer than 100,000 votes, all absentee. In 1960, absentee votes were almost exclusively Republican, just the opposite of 2020, in which Biden mail-in votes took days to be counted and were Democrat. Politics has taken some wild and new paradigms during my years, mostly for the good. 2020 presidential winner racks up over 76 million votes, and the loser 71 million votes. The loser has more votes than any winning president has ever scored in the history of the United States. Almost 150 million votes were cast for and against a 74-year-old man and the winner, a 78-year-old former vice president. Both young whippersnappers compared to me. The loser, President Donald J. Trump, has taken a road never taken before in criticizing mail-in votes as precursors for corruption and vote stealing. He has done so for months before Election Day. He told his followers to not vote by mail. Along with his anti-mail ballot position, he claimed that he could only lose if mail voting was not used because groups would pollute the vote. Bad groups, bad people. Trump refuses, as of this moment, to accept vote counting in states he lost, including Wisconsin, Michigan, Pennsylvania, Arizona, and Georgia. He carried all four of these states in 2016 and has lost every one of them in 2020. Trump representatives have challenged vote counting in Nevada that Trump thought he could carry. Nevada is solid for President-elect Biden. Loser Trump's statements and complaints, he telegraphed in advance, for example, that he could win all of those states, are becoming more strident as vote counting is winding down and he is losing those states by more and more votes, except for Arizona, where Biden's lead was whittled down in the last week of counting. His lawyers have filed innumerable challenges in courts of several states. They have little chance of succeeding. They haven't succeeded yet over a dozen times. That, according to expert lawyers, many Republicans who have looked at the various challenges in various states and said no. President Trump is president until noon on January 20th, a date specified by the U.S. Constitution, a date and time. He will become a White House trespasser at that moment. Former Vice President Joe Biden will become president at noon on the 20th of January, no matter what Trump says. what he believes or what he tells his fans on Twitter. Between now and then, Trump and his people should be working with Biden and his transition people. So far, they haven't lifted a finger to help. Trump has ordered all agencies to not cooperate with Biden's people. That is disgraceful. It is without shame, or as we say in Spanish, sin vergüenza. It is also illegal. That, ladies and gentlemen, endangers the United States. So does the continuing pandemic that has caused 240,000 deaths so far and will kill more. Trump officials tell the media that the death toll could double because Trump isn't doing anything to fight the pandemic. In the past few days, over 100,000 new COVID-19 infections a day have assaulted the American public, and the number of deaths are increasing again. Trump's orders to agencies to not cooperate with Biden is a death sentence for some Americans. How many? We'll never know. Despite Trump's massive re-election loss by over 5 million votes and a projected 306 electoral college Biden vote, the exact vote that Trump won when, in 2016 against Hillary Clinton, 306 electoral votes. Despite that, the Republican Party did exceptionally well. Those of you who saw my politics report before the election will remember that I sort of predicted this. The Republicans did not lose control of the Senate on election day. They wind up with 50 senators to 48. Yes, Senators Gardner of Colorado and Senator McSally of Arizona lost, both that I supported. But Senator Collins of Maine didn't. I supported her. A Republican replaced a Democratic senator in Alabama. Republicans retained 50 seats and will be in 2 runoffs in Georgia on January 5th. The 2 senators, David Perdue and appointed Senator Kelly Loeffler, are required to run off even though they both won among Georgia's votes cast in the election. Well, actually, she didn't, but she would have had it been just her and the Democrat. Georgia requires a runoff if the most votes cast for a candidate in a general election doesn't amount to 50% plus 1. Georgia is the only state to have this law. It was designed to keep former Negro slaves running as Republicans from running statewide in any election in Georgia. Example, if there were 5 or 6 white candidates for governor and 1 black man in the primary, the black man might win the nomination and go on to win the general election. But because there were so many candidates in the primary, which might have been the general election, the white vote was diluted and the black man would win by a wide margin because no candidate would have to win a majority. They would just get more votes. Now there must be a runoff. And a white could run off against the black even now. But this isn't post-Civil War South. That is exactly what happened here. Senator Loeffler ran second to a black pastor in the special election because a third white guy ran as a Republican, and he burned off enough votes to keep her opponent from reaching 50% plus 1. The pastor had 32%. Senator Loeffler wound up with 25%, and the other candidate, Congressman Doug Collins, Republican, received 19%. Thus, the January 5th runoff. The majority of the United States Senate is on the line here. The Republicans currently have 50. Those 2 will run off on January 5th. If the Republicans win just 1, they will control the United States Senate. And that is good news. But if they win both, they'll have 52 senators. Senators Perdue and Loeffler should be favored to win the election and keep the Senate Republican. I hope that's the case. The Senate will be then 52 Republicans and 48 Democrats. Republicans had great success in the House of Representatives by increasing the number of GOP they increased the number of GOP governors and held control of the state legislatures they have dominated since 2010. In other words, they will control the redistricting processes and all of these states, guaranteeing many more Republicans to be elected in the next 10 years. Though there are still a number of House seats being counted as of today, Republicans have won so far 5 House seats they lost in 2018 when the Republicans were wiped out, with 40 of them being beaten by Democrats. Let me declare GOP victory for November 3rd. Voters split their tickets just as I suggested they would in our last visit. Remember, I said that Republican-leaning voters might be unhappy with Trump, which they were, and his boorish behavior and gigantic mistakes and presentations, like the first debate with Biden, but they still like their senators. They voted for them 6 years ago for a reason. If they still felt that way for their senators, they could easily vote against Trump and for the senator despite being a Republican. They did exactly as I suggested they could. They voted by splitting their ticket. Many people. We are better off than we were on November 2nd. Trump is gone, and we have a Republican Senate to keep Nancy Pelosi, Senator Chuck Schumer, and President Joe Biden in check. We have not voted a socialist government into being this year. In our next Contreras report, we will take a closer look at how Hispanics voted throughout the country, with special emphasis on Florida, Texas, and Georgia. And lastly, Arizona, where they carried the day. Remember this, it's Hispanics for over 70%, Latinos for some say 20%, but only 2% call themselves Latinx. I don't like that term. I will never use it again on the Contreras Political Report. I do want to make one extra note here. In the 50th Congressional District of California, my old friend, Darrell Issa, for whom I worked in his original election in 2000, won the 50th Congressional District handily over a guy who claimed to be half Mexican, who called himself I forgot his first name. His last name was Campo, his mother's name, dash Najjar, which is Arabic because his father was a Palestinian. But you see, this guy was so screwed up on his cultural appropriation that he didn't know that it was supposed to be the other way around. It's supposed to be his first name, and then Najjar for his father, and Campo for his mother. But he was everywhere running as Campo Najjar. He didn't even know. The man was totally divorced from his Mexican background. And that's not nice. I'm Raul Lowry Contreras, Lowry being my stepfather's name, my legal name. Contreras being my mother's name. I honor my mother and her family by using that name. In this case, Raul Lowry Contreras. This is the Contreras Political Report. I will be back soon. Please email me at HispanicCommentator@gmail.com. It's at the end of the program, and I will respond as quickly as I get your email. I promise you, I respond, and I will. Thank you for being there. We'll talk to you again soon.